How's it, guys? Just quickly wanted to chat to you after our compact Arabie this last weekend. If you saw my post, it wasn't exactly the biggest bass kind of weekend, but you know, Jared and I went out and we still had a lot of fun. So, and that's ultimately what it's all about. So I just want to give you a little bit of background. We knew that there was a lot of small fish available, so I wasn't too worried about getting bag. But we were sort of worried about getting a big bite, which seemed to have been troublesome to get, and that's feedback from the individuals that was had before and a couple of friends that had been fishing. So we've sort of been monitoring things for about 3 weeks, and everybody came back with the same feedback to say you'll get bag pretty easy. It's about finding that bigger bite, and a bigger bite literally meant, in my opinion anyway, 800 grams and up. If you could find kg fish, and if you could have found 5 of them, you would have done really well. And then obviously if you could really find a 1.5 etc, yeah, you would have placed. So those who did manage to find the bigger fish did place. If you go have a look at the scores on eBass's website, you will see that there was sort of this really average, sorry, that's boating them outside, of like just keepers and 500-600 gram fish that were coming out. Jared and I must have caught, I don't know, we lost count eventually, but we were culling and culling and culling and culling, and it was literally trying to gain grams at the end of the day. But anyway, we had a good time out. I just quickly wanted to chat to you about 2 of the main lures that I used. So we threw plastics. I eventually stopped throwing plastics because it was cast for cast for cast for cast that you were catching either just as keepers or undersized fish. So one of the things we did, which we caught on a bit too late, I think if I thought about it earlier, was a good old spinnerbait. It's still on my rod. I haven't even taken it off. Double willow leaf blades. I just happen to have a mix of copper and the gold. Chartreuse white. It's not a very fancy expensive, I think it's an old booyah spinnerbait that I've probably had for 10 years plus. The reason why I opted for these colors is the fish seem to really like something with a bit of chartreuse in, and the white, given the the clear water that we had up in the main dam. 1/4 ounce, it's a standard go-to for me. Little 6'6". I've got a Quantum KVD series rod. I really like these rods. They've got a nice soft tip, they're super light. But the biggest thing for me, because I'm such a shorty, is this short butt end. It's just easier to work with under your arm, especially when you're trying to give those twitches. So that was one of the things. Literally within the last hour and a bit, we were fishing that, and we picked up quite a lot of keeper size fish, and we were, like I say, culling for grams at the end of the day. The next important thing was a jerk bait. It's the first rod that I had in my hand, and I stuck to this for most of the day. So I'm actually just taking it out of its zebra socks lure cover. It's a little Shimano. It's a shadow wrap. It's a suspending one. The reason why I did it is because I figured the fish were suspending. I think this color is called Hay. It's a beautiful color in clear water. I've actually started looking for the rest of them in the country, but this is what I caught the majority of my bigger keepers on. But the big thing that I wanted to chat to you guys about, and I put a little post up earlier, I think it was a week or 2 ago, was just chatting about line. And it's one of the things I do actually spend a bit of money on, because ultimately it's your last sort of connection with the fish, right? So I know that fluorocarbon is very expensive, good fluorocarbon anyway. So a trick of the trade is if you back your reel up with good old mono. I use trilene. I have Berkeley Big Game all my life. It's never let me down. So it's a standard mono. This is a 12 pound. I have them on all my rods. So you back up your bait caster with that, and then you give yourself about 100 yards of fluoro, if not a bit more. I've got about 100 yards. This is the first time I've used cigar line. I happened to get a really great deal in the States, and I brought it in a couple of months ago. It was like a clear out sale, and I think they cost something like $7 at the time. So I bought a couple of boxes of these. It's the first time I fished with it, guys. My mind was blown. The diameter of the line is super thin, smooth. it's just such great casting. You know, I've got the old school Bantam Curados that Villa from The Real Guy has hooked me up with, and he's also upgraded them to the high-speed bearings. But I sort of wasn't getting the distance that I thought I would get until I changed my line, and it made a huge difference. So for those of you who doubt just how much difference good line makes, I promise you, just in your casting, I saw a magnificent improvement. I'm not sponsored by them. I am telling you they're expensive, but I am telling you it's worth it. If you take care of your reels and your line and stuff, you don't, people will probably shoot me for this, but you don't need to be changing your line out every single tournament. I would probably swap out halfway through the season, if even. Good line, and if you are not fishing to put a check, you know, on the dinner table every night, you don't need to be changing your line every tournament. Good quality line will last you a season. So I just really wanted to come back to you guys and say to you, look, I spent the money. It is really, really, really worth it. Sensitivity was great. Look, I can't say we were fishing that the fish that we were catching weren't, or that the bite was finicky. When you found them, they were aggressive. You didn't doubt whether you had a bite or not. So I can't even comment on the sensitivity yet, but just in terms of the additional casting distance that I got, well worth the money that I spent. Like I said, it is an expensive line. I'm not even going to beat around the bush, and this is not even a top of the range. It's they've got basics, I think it is now, which Brian LePan has got. Then they've got the red label, which is one just above that, and I think this is the next one in the line. So it's just, I think it's average or just below average. They've got Tatsu and a bunch of other stuff that is also really good. But like I say, for the additional casting distance that I got, the strength that it has, it had hardly any memory. Really spend the money. Remember, you don't have to fill your whole spool up with this. Back it up with good old monofilament. Berkeley Trilene, tried, tested, it's been around for forever. I've used it all my fishing career. It's never let me down. In fact, I'll tease Jared here and say he's got line on his boat where this outweighs at 6 Love in terms of durability against abrasion. Back it up with that, put about 100 yards of this, Bob's your uncle. So yeah, just wanted to chat to you about that line. Very important. If you can afford to, spend a bit of extra bucks, get a good fluoro going. It wasn't particularly on these rods. I don't put fluoro on things like spinnerbaits and jerkbaits. I just stick to mono. But on my worming rods, it was worth it. It's worth the money that I spent at the end of the day. Do yourself a favor, get it. It doesn't necessarily have to be cigar. I've used Trilene before. But yeah, just invest some money in a really good fluoro. It will make a difference in your fishing. Thanks for checking in, appreciate it, and thanks to everyone who helped me with the life jacket promo. I appreciate it. I can get you some, just not at the same price, so if you're still keen for that, let me know. Apologies for this super long video, but I appreciate you checking in, and I'll drop another video just with a bit more detail on how we approached Arabie, and you'll hear from me soon. Have a good one.